And I came back into my body. I don't even think I stopped reading, to be honest.
Our eyes connected, and I looked into his eyes, and it felt as if I'd swapped places with him.
Just imagine being so closely connected to a loved one that you feel their presence even as they transition from this life. What if, in their final moments, you could witness something extraordinary, a glimpse of their journey beyond, a shared crossing that changes your understanding of life and death forever? Today, we'll explore 5 incredible true stories of shared death experiences, moments where people felt sensations, witnessed visions, or even accompanied their loved ones as they passed on. These stories are profound, moving, and may just resonate with something deep within you. Let's begin. William Peters has shared his experience with Ron in various interviews and writings, recounting a vivid and transformative moment that took place while he was volunteering at a hospice in Santa Barbara, California. Here's the account in more detail, along with its aftermath. William Peters, at the time a hospice volunteer, had formed a close bond with Ron, a patient in his care. Ron was in his final days, and Peters often sat by his bedside, offering companionship and emotional support. On one particular visit, Peters was alone with Ron, sitting quietly beside him. Ron appeared to be slipping deeper into unconsciousness, his breathing shallow. Suddenly, Peters felt a distinct pulling sensation that seemed to lift him out of his physical body. He described the feeling as light, peaceful, and entirely unlike anything he had experienced before. As he floated upward, he realised he could see himself and Ron from an elevated perspective. It was as though he had transcended the physical realm and was now observing everything from a higher dimension. What struck Peters most was that Ron's spirit appeared to be beside him in this elevated space. He described Ron as looking radiant, free of the pain and illness that had plagued his physical body. They exchanged a look of deep understanding and peace, a connection that felt beyond words. Moments later, Peters felt himself being drawn back into his body. When he returned to full consciousness, he realised that Ron had passed away. After the experience, Peters felt a profound sense of calm and wonder. However, he was initially hesitant to share the details of what had happened. He worried that Ron's family might not understand or might view the story as overly personal or unbelievable. Eventually, Peters decided to share his experience with Ron's family, believing it might bring them comfort. He explained what he had witnessed, the sense of peace, the apparent transition of Ron's spirit, and the beauty of the shared moment. The family was deeply moved by his account. They expressed gratitude, telling Peters that it brought them solace to know Ron's passing had been peaceful and that he had been accompanied in such a profound way. The experience with Ron was a pivotal moment in Peters' life. It inspired him to explore the phenomenon of shared death experiences further. He founded the Shared Crossing Project, an organisation dedicated to studying and sharing these experiences. His work has helped countless individuals find meaning and comfort in their own end-of-life and shared crossing stories. Peters has since shared his account in interviews, podcasts, and his book At Heaven's Door, aiming to demystify SDEs and highlight their potential to provide comfort during the grieving process. For Ron's family, the story of his peaceful transition remains a source of healing and connection. But what if such a connection could happen even across vast distances? That brings us to Annie Cap's remarkable story.
It made a massive impact on me. I no longer fear death. I now believe there is something greater than us, which I hadn't before. And I'm just a different person, actually. I'm a much happier person because of what happened.
Annie Cap was thousands of miles away when her mother passed away. On the day of her mother's death, Annie was not expecting anything unusual. However, at the precise moment of her mother's passing, she was overwhelmed by an intense and vivid sensation. She described feeling her mother's presence so strongly that it seemed as though they were in the same room, despite the physical distance. Annie experienced a flood of emotions and imagery. She felt a profound sense of connection and witnessed scenes that she interpreted as part of her mother's transition to another realm. Annie recalled feeling enveloped by her mother's love and sensing a deep peace, as if her mother was reassuring her that everything was all right. The experience left her with an unshakable belief that she had been part of her mother's journey, even from afar. When Annie learned later that her mother had passed at the exact time of her experience, she was deeply moved but not entirely surprised. She believed the shared death experience was a sign of their close bond, and her mother's way of saying goodbye. Annie shared the story with her family, who were initially surprised but found comfort in her account. Her vivid description of the event reassured them that their mother had transitioned peacefully and was still connected to them in some way. This experience also inspired Annie to delve deeper into spiritual phenomena, and she has since written and spoken about shared death experiences, emphasizing their ability to provide comfort and reduce fear around death. Like William Peters, Annie's story serves as a compelling example of the profound connections that can occur during life's final moments. But what happens when such a connection unfolds in the chaos of war? Let's turn to the extraordinary story of Karl Skala. The story of Karl Skala and his shared death experience during World War I is a true account that has been documented in literature about near-death and shared death phenomena. This story offers a fascinating glimpse into the extraordinary events that can occur even amidst the chaos of war. Karl Skala was a German soldier fighting on the front lines during World War I. He and his close friend were stationed in a foxhole, enduring the constant threat of artillery fire. One day, a shell exploded nearby, instantly killing Skala's comrade. At the moment of the explosion, Skala experienced something utterly unexpected. He described feeling himself being pulled upward, leaving his physical body. He found himself floating above the battlefield, able to see the destruction below, but feeling strangely detached from the chaos. To his amazement, he was not alone in this elevated state. His friend's spirit appeared beside him. Together, Skala and his friend's spirit began moving toward what Skala described as a bright, comforting light. The light emanated warmth and peace, starkly contrasting the violence of the battlefield. Skala felt as though he was accompanying his friend on a journey toward the afterlife. However, before they could reach the light, Skala was abruptly pulled back to his body. He woke up in the foxhole, shaken but physically unharmed, except for temporary hearing loss from the explosion. His friend, however, had passed away. The experience left a lasting impression on Skala. He was deeply moved by what he had witnessed and felt certain it was not a hallucination but a real glimpse into the spiritual realm. The shared experience gave him a profound sense of peace, even amidst the horrors of war, and convinced him that life continued after death. After the war, Skala shared his account with others, including his friend's family. While some were sceptical, many found comfort in the idea that their loved one had not died alone and that Skala had accompanied him partway on his journey. His story resonated with those grieving the immense losses of the war, offering hope and solace in a time of widespread mourning. Skala's experience has been included in various collections of near-death and shared death stories, often cited as an example of the profound connections that can occur at the moment of death. His account contributes to the growing body of evidence suggesting that shared death experiences transcend cultural and situational boundaries, providing insights into the mysteries of life and death. Now imagine such a connection happening not in a battlefield, but in the quiet, sacred space of a hospital room. That's where Penny Sartori's story begins.
Poor man was in so much pain, he nearly jumped out of bed in agony. And at that point, our eyes connected, and I looked into his eyes, and it felt as if I'd swapped places with him. And I could feel like what he was feeling and all the things going through his mind.
The account of Penny Sartori, a nurse who had a profound shared death experience while caring for a dying patient, is a true and well-documented story. Sartori is a researcher and author known for her work on near-death and shared death phenomena. This particular experience was pivotal in shaping her understanding of the end-of-life process. Penny Sartori was working as a nurse in a hospital intensive care unit, caring for a patient who was in the final stages of life. The patient, an elderly man, was unconscious and unresponsive, with his family gathered nearby saying their goodbyes. As Sartori attended to the patient, she placed her hand on the bed frame, intending to offer a silent moment of support. Almost immediately, she was overcome by an extraordinary sensation. It felt as though her consciousness had shifted, and she found herself deeply connected to the patient in a way she had never experienced before. Sartori described the sensation as stepping into the patient's reality, feeling his emotions, his physical pain, and even his thoughts. In this shared space, Sartori felt the patient's overwhelming desire to let go and transition peacefully. She understood his sense of surrender and the deep peace he was seeking. For a brief moment, she experienced the patient's perspective of death as something freeing rather than frightening. When the connection ended, Sartori returned to full awareness of her surroundings. The patient had passed away peacefully shortly after this experience. Sartori was profoundly affected by this shared death experience. Although she had witnessed many deaths as a nurse, this was the first time she felt she had truly understood what it was like to be in the patient's position. The experience left her with a sense of awe and a newfound respect for the dying process. She shared her experience with a few colleagues who were supportive but unsure how to interpret what she had described. Sartori kept the story to herself for some time, reflecting on its implications. Eventually, it inspired her to pursue deeper research into near-death and shared death experiences. Penny Sartori's experience became the catalyst for her groundbreaking research on end-of-life phenomena. She went on to write books and articles exploring the spiritual and emotional aspects of dying, including the wisdom of near-death experiences. Her work has helped to normalize conversations about death and dying, providing comfort to those facing the loss of loved ones. The family of the patient never learnt about Sartori's shared experience, as she felt it was a deeply personal moment meant to inform her own understanding. However, the connection she described has resonated with countless people who have read her work, offering hope and reassurance about the transition between life and death. But what happens when the connection involves not just emotions, but vivid flashes of memory and life itself? For that, let's hear Amelia B's story. The story of Amelia B, who experienced a transformative shared death experience, is one that has been recounted in shared death and near-death communities. Her experience highlights the emotional and spiritual impact such moments can have on individuals, reshaping their understanding of life and death. Amelia B was present at her father's bedside during his final moments. Her father had been ill for some time, and Amelia, along with other family members, had been keeping vigil as he approached the end of his life. Although she had prepared herself for the inevitable, nothing could have prepared her for the extraordinary event that occurred. As her father took his last breaths, Amelia felt an overwhelming presence in the room. She described it as a wave of warmth and love that seemed to envelop everyone present. In that moment, Amelia felt herself being drawn into what she described as a shared space of light and peace. She had a vivid sense of her father's spirit leaving his body, accompanied by an indescribable feeling of joy and freedom. Amelia felt as though she were momentarily part of her father's transition. She experienced flashes of memories and emotions from his life, both joyous and sorrowful. In this heightened state, she sensed her father's gratitude for his life and his love for his family. Amelia also felt a profound sense of reassurance, as if her father was communicating that he was at peace and surrounded by love. As the experience subsided, Amelia became aware that her father had passed. The room felt still and serene, and she was left with a deep sense of connection and understanding. Amelia was deeply moved by the experience. It altered her perspective on death, replacing her fear with a sense of peace and acceptance. She shared the story with her family, who were initially skeptical but open to hearing her account. For some family members, her story brought comfort, helping them process their grief by imagining their loved one's peaceful transition. These stories are more than extraordinary accounts. They invite us to question the very nature of life, death, and love. What if these moments of connection are not rare but part of a deeper reality, a truth that we often overlook? What if love truly never ends, and these shared crossings are glimpses of something far greater than we can imagine? Imagine, just imagine, that as we say goodbye to those we love, they are reaching back, showing us that they are not truly gone. Have you ever experienced something like this? A fleeting moment, a sign, or a feeling that made you wonder if someone you lost was still near? But if you haven't experienced anything like this, that's okay too. These stories aren't just about having the same experience. They're about inviting us all to wonder, to think about the possibility that love is far more powerful and enduring than we've ever imagined. Whether these accounts spoke to your own memories, sparked curiosity, or simply made you reflect on the enduring nature of love and life, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe. Personally, I believe in the afterlife, and because of this, I'm not afraid of dying. Over the past few decades, I've dedicated myself to researching, reading, and listening to countless near-death experience accounts. I can't get enough of these incredible stories, and now it's my turn to share them with you. Stories that explore every aspect of the afterlife.